Hello my friends, my name is Hannah and welcome to a new reading vlog. Sorry that I'm reaching for my books. It's been a hot minute since I pulled a reading prompt out of my little yellow jar of reading prompts that I was allegedly going to use in order to get my physical TBR down. I haven't done it in a while. I got very distracted by doing other things, which is unfortunately to be expected on this channel. But I'm back on it now. I'm back on it. And as you can probably tell from the thumbnail, I got an interesting prompt. I got a prompt to read books from my first haul. Now, I am approaching, or actually by the time this video is up, I think I will have had my YouTube first anniversary. So I'm relatively new to booktube, which means my first haul wasn't too long ago. We're not talking going back 5 or 6 years. And actually, I think it might have been one of my only hauls that I've done on my channel, because this isn't a very hauly channel. I try not to haul too much if possible. But I have linked the video down below that was my first haul. It involved barter books in Almond, the accidental bookshop in Almond, and also an event with Maggie O'Farrell that I was attending, not doing. Jesus, that would be the dream. But I have pleasantly surprised myself. So in that video, I hauled 15 books. I have already unhauled 2 of them. They weren't actually books that I'd bought, they were just books that kind of, someone had passed on to me and I'd gone, yeah, I'll take it. Or they'd said, does anyone want these in a bookish group that I'm in? And I said, yeah, I'll take them. And then on reflection was like, I'm not going to read these books. I don't know why I said yes to them. And I have already passed them on to readers who will do what they're supposed to and actually read those books. And I have read 7 of the 15 books. Well, 7 of the 13 remaining books after I unhauled 2, which means, if you're good at your maths, I have 6 books. Is that right? 15 minus... Oh, pause while I struggle with my maths. I read 8. I was wondering why my numbers weren't stacking up. So unhauled 2, read 8. So that leaves 5 books that I hauled and haven't read yet. I think it is unlikely that I will read all 5 of them, but I've pulled 4 of them off my shelf, and I'm not going to lie, it's largely because, look, aren't they a nice aesthetic little quadruple? So what have we got here? Essentially, I'm thinking this vlog is going to be a kind of spooky gothic time, maybe. So the first book is bloody Dracula. So it's this absolutely beautiful cloth-bound classics edition of Dracula, which I bought in the hope that it would make me actually read it. I tried to read this book when I was about maybe 14 or 15, and I found it absolutely dull as dishwater. However, my stamina for reading very slow things has really improved over the years. So I want to give it another go. I have a couple of friends who are big fans of it and think I will like it. So we're going to do Dracula, or at least we're going to see. And if not, I mean, what a beautiful book to potentially DNF. Christ. I don't do this anymore, by the way. Over the course of the year, we don't buy beautiful fancy editions of books there's a chance we might not like. Never mind. Then, sort of related to Dracula, My friend Lula lent this to me, my God, I think nearly a year ago. Well, it will be nearly a year ago, obviously. So this is sat on my shelf. It is not even my book. It has sat on my shelf for 12 months and I haven't read it yet. And it's a graphic novel. Like, I could read this in an hour. I don't know why I haven't read it yet, but that is my little treat for if I finish this. I mean, I will read this regardless of if I finish this, but you know, they're a pair, they come together. And then, I don't know about this one. Again, I bought it because it's David Almond, and if you've been on my channel before, you will know that I'm trying to read more local authors. David Almond, very famous author from the northeast of England, but also if you've been on my channel, you will know that I am not the best with short stories, and this is a collection of short stories. They are stories for adults. I don't really know what the vibe of them is, but this is giving very creepy, gothic-y vibes. I think they are all sort of very informed by growing up in Tyneside, so that is great, and I'm hoping that the local interest will power me through. So we're going to read some short stories, or we're at least going to try and read some short stories by David Almond. And then the final book is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura, which is translated from the Japanese by Philip Gabriel. This looks like it's going to be a kind of dark fantasy sort of magic realist book about basically, I think, I don't want to read the blurbs too much right before reading them, but I'm pretty sure from what I remember of people talking about it, because this is one that I saw lots of people reading on booktube and on bookstagram as well, that there's sort of like this weird magical kingdom that people end up in because they wake up in the middle of the night and their like mirrors are shining and they like touch them and then they go into this weird world. So this one I think is going to be odd. So there we go. Those are the books. It is currently Sunday night. I'm filming this because I've got work tomorrow at home and then I'm getting the train down to London. I'm going to be in London for work for a couple of days doing some filming in some schools. So I'm going to have some train journeys and I'm going to have some, you know, solo hanging out in London time all by myself. So hopefully I will be able to make a dent in some of these, and I will catch up with you soon. In the meantime, here's some B-roll of something. See you later. Hey, you probably didn't need to see that I attached a hair clip to my lip, but never mind. Hello, my friends. Once again, I have started a reading vlog that has taken much longer than I originally thought. I've just had to scroll back through the clips to find out when I first filmed that intro. It was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. I've not updated you in 2 weeks. I've read some stuff, just haven't updated you about it yet. But I don't know if I've mentioned on this channel, this is a really busy time for me with work. So I knew I wasn't going to be super quick about this. I was hoping I might be a little bit quicker than I have been, but never mind. The good news is I've read one book and that much of another one. So, firstly, I have read Nesting by David Almond. Now, David Almond, if you are not familiar with him, a pretty beloved British children's author from up here in the northeast. He's probably most famous for Skellig, which is a book that I really loved as a kid and actually would really like to reread and would really like a copy of. And I'm wondering if I resurrect my interest in bookbinding and maybe find an old copy of Skellig that I could rebind. But that's an ambitious topic for another day, another video. But yeah, he's mostly known as a children's author, and I do have a soft spot for him because he actually spoke at my graduation. He was the keynote speaker, what are they called, commencement speakers, at my graduation. So I've met him and he's very, very nice. And yeah, this is not a children's book. It is a series of stories for adults, but interestingly, he sort of wrote them, most of them quite early in his career. So they're kind of a compilation of some of the first stories that he ever kind of submitted to publications and stuff. And although this publication was pulled together after he was an established children's author, he wrote a lot of them quite early on in his career. And it's really interesting, and he notes this himself in the introduction, how much he was very much always has been interested in childhood, children's perspective, seeing the world through a child's eyes, because most of the stories in here center children's experiences. And I just thought that was really, really interesting to see how he's obviously kind of made that transition throughout his career from looking at children in a kind of I guess sort of talking about children's experiences for an adult audience, and then kind of progressing into doing that for a children's audience. That was really interesting. And look, hey, if you've been on my channel before, you will know that I have a pretty iffy relationship with short story collections. But I'm pleased to say that I didn't seem to have the same problems that I often have with short story collections. Namely that I always feel like they finish too soon, they're too short. And that I sometimes get a bit in the weeds with them, where I kind of am trying to work out how they all connect to each other, and sometimes they do connect, but I don't like the way they connect, and sometimes they don't connect at all, and I did like that even less. I'm just a tricky customer when it comes to a short story collection. But this, it's almost written in 3 parts, or it's almost presented in 3 parts. And they're 3 mini collections of a few stories. And that kind of worked a bit better for me because they were all quite thematically grouped, but also the whole collection has really, really strong themes that he was obviously interested in exploring and has kind of tackled over time. And I kind of feel like I'm going to contradict myself here, but I almost feel like because this wasn't written as a collection of short stories, it was actually other pieces of writing that he's then put together. Almost what you get is this evolution of ideas. You can see that he's kind of preoccupied with similar things over time, and I think that was really, really interesting. So the 2 kind of sections, either side of the middle, so the beginning section and the end section, I don't know why I found that so hard to articulate, are more kind of realistic, quite like gritty, kind of imagine like Ken Loach writing a short story sort of explorations of childhood in the Northeast. And I really liked those. And then the middle section is a more kind of magical realist selection of stories called Market Tales, which have really strong kind of resonances of kind of freak show and othering, and have more of a kind of a magical realist element to them. I also wanted to say about the Market Tales is that they don't take place as the others do in the Northeast. It's like in an unspecified place in an unspecified world, and all of the stories in that section are to do with like things that go on like in a market place. I'm so tired. I don't know why I felt the need to re-clarify that, but there you go. Fuck's sake, back to me. But as I said, the themes that he's coming back to over and over again are really interesting. There was this constant thread throughout, almost of looking as an adult at children at the point in their lives when they are witnessing and seeing for the first time and trying to understand adult trauma. And that's just so, it was such a layered way of doing it. It was fascinating. But also there's a lot of context, a lot of kind of, yeah, like there's a lot of the Northeast in them. So I also am very aware that my enjoyment was probably amplified by the fact that I knew the places that he was talking about, the beaches he was talking about, the parts of Newcastle city centre and things like that. And there was a kind of, again, I think partly because of where he's written them over time, this relationship with like the landscape, because you've got stories where families have moved to pit villages, and that has been like built up and they've kind of just moved there. And then there's other stories where it's more like the aftermath of those and those communities after the industry is gone, but all the housing and stuff is still there, but now no longer connected to the industry. And there's just a lot in here about, as I said, children witnessing adults and seeing adults' kind of issues and trying to work through them. There was also a lot of kind of children grappling with experiences of othering, whether it's themselves being othered or other people being kind of othered in front of them. And you know, those kind of early but quite formative experiences that you have when you're a kid, where you're working out, oh, I'm the kind of person that finds it difficult to speak up about some of these things, or I'm the kind of person that can't stand seeing that kind of thing. So there were like themes of that all the way through. Now, because of who I am, I finished this about 3 days ago, but some of the stories do blend quite a bit for me, but there were some real standouts and some really beautiful writing as well. And yeah, on the whole, I'm glad I picked that up. And it's from quite a small press, Iron Press, who I haven't heard of really, so that was nice. And apparently they were really supportive of him early in his career, so I'm maybe going to look them up and see what else they do. But yeah, definitely, like, if you are like me, local to the Northeast, and you want to read some stories that feature some places that you'll recognize, then I I recommend it. But yeah, very cool and really interesting too. I kind of really want to read Skellig quite soon now, or even any of his other children's books, to kind of see how, because, you know, obs I can't remember. I remember loving Skellig, but I remember like loads about it, you know. And then I am, 2/3 of the way through Dracula, and I am glad I've given this book another go. I can see why when I was a teenager, I read about 20 pages and gave up. It is kind of dense and kind of slow at the start. And I think there's the thing, like, Dracula's like such a thing, right, in our zeitgeist, that I think sometimes when you're reading some of the canonical texts for things that have just existed in popular culture like your entire life, I definitely can experience quite a lot of impatience. Like, I just want to like just show me Dracula and just like do this. Like, I just want to know what like the original story is. So I think I come into it as a relatively impatient reader, like more so than normal. But actually, I'm really enjoying how this is paced out. It's all written, if you're not familiar with it, it's all written kind of through letters and diary entries from a number of people who are all sort of having separate seeming experiences that then kind of converge, and they kind of join this little like club. But yeah, it's I'm really enjoying it. It's not like tense. Yeah, it's not like suspensey for me yet, but it's like intriguing. And I mean, we are also at the moment, we're getting quite a lot of incredibly patronizing chivalrous behavior happening. So there's this really cool character called Mina Harker, and she's like a bit of a badass. She's like super smart, and everyone really respects her. Like, all the men like treat her as like for ages they were treating her as an equal and being like, oh my god, she's contributed to this like investigation that we're doing like so well. And I was reading it like, that's great, look at this, well done, Bram Stoker. And they've just started now that they've like identified some danger. I mean, like, I don't think it's a spoiler to tell you like there's a vampire in Dracula, and they've just figured it out. And now they're all being like super paternalistic and like really protective of her. But also now they're talking about Mina like, oh, she's so amazing because she thinks like a man, because she's not like a woman, and that kind of like exceptionalist narrative that just grinds my gears. But I think, you know, there's always going to be an element of just having to like grin and bear it when you're picking up something that's, you know, old, and accepting that, you know, I think if Bram Stoker was alive today, he'd be a very good feminist if he'd had the education that, you know, we have had. But yeah, it's getting a little bit like the eyes are rolling a little bit now. But yeah, I'm enjoying that. So I'm gonna crack on with that. And I will probably this weekend, it's Friday afternoon now, I have just finished work and just got back from the dog walk, and so yeah, I'm gonna read a bit of this, and then I'm gonna start Lonely Castle in the Mirror as well this weekend, I think. And then I'm away on Wednesday. Now, in an ideal world, I would wrap this vlog up, edit it, upload it before Wednesday. It's not doable. But I've also been sick. That's part of the reason it's taken me longer. I had a really nasty, I was gonna say bug. I don't think it was. I just think I'm really knackered, and I think I have been doing a lot of traveling, and I relaxed briefly, and my entire body went nope. So that's fun, isn't it, when that happens when you're really busy? Self-care. But yeah, that is what I've been up to. I don't know what you're going to see now, or indeed if you're going to, if I know, yeah, you're going to see something now. Dog walk, food, a train, who knows? Who knows? Catch you later. Happy Saturday. It's all fucking glamour here. This is well-practiced art. I've had to do some readjusting because my extremely small dog needed to just scooch on in here. You say hi? That's my partner singing in the background. He's rehearsing. What have you got? You got a shoe? Hello. Despite serious reservations, I've actually managed to finish reading all the books I was supposed to finish reading in time to, I think, film and edit this before I go away. Hooray! Nothing activates me quite like an impossible seeming deadline. So I've read the final 3 books that I wanted to chat to you about. So I'll start with Dracula because I had started talking to you about this. For me, I think what I was surprised at was how little dread and kind of fear I felt. It was weirdly, for me, not tense, and I know that's a weird thing to say about a book that is like an absolute like gothic horror kind of classic, but I think I've been mulling this over, and I think this is why, and it involves a like slight spoiler, but this book is old, so sorry. Skip ahead like 3 minutes if you don't want any spoilers at all. So Mina, you will recall this incredibly accomplished woman with the brain of a man, you know, everyone thinks she's fucking great. And she is great, I really liked her. She gets bitten by Dracula. And it's not like a mortal wound in that she's okay, but if she dies before Dracula dies, her soul will be lost and she'll become like a vampire. And that's the peril. And I think as someone who is like not spiritual or not religious, I'm not that into souls. And for me, her soul being in peril and that being the big driving force of the kind of climax of the narrative, it just didn't have the same sort of weight for me, a Philistine, as if it was like, we're in actual bodily mortal danger. That for me, I would be more like, oh shit, yeah, let's fucking go, this is scary. You know what I mean? So it's very, very, very personal. But yeah, I did find that also because of the nature of the way the book's written, in terms of it being these like letters, journal entries, la 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 la, the closer you got to the end, you were like, well, here are these people writing with hindsight at some point before the final act of the book. You have had time, not before the final act, but at some point after the final act, you've had time to write this down, so I assume you survive. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was interesting. You know, very Victorian, very repressed, very chaste. But I did enjoy it for what it was. And I think I've also been kind of sitting reflecting on the fact that vampire stories are so ubiquitous in our culture now. It's like a whole literary tradition that I think I'm having to be really like specific about giving Bram Stoker the credit of like, there weren't always loads of vampire books. I'm not saying this is not the first book that's ever been written about vampires. It's not even the first one in English, but it is it was one of the first popular ones that then sparked the tradition, of which there are now hundreds of thousands of titles. And so you gotta give it credit for kind of what it's done for spawning a whole subgenre of literature. But yeah, didn't blow me away, but generally quite enjoyable. Lost me a little bit towards the end. I think the middle section was my favorite bit. As soon as like it stopped being about working out what's going wrong and became like a chase, I just felt like the format of the novel didn't serve that as well as the kind of mystery side. So yeah. Was there anything else in my notes I wanted to say about this? No. Dracula. Absolutely fine. That was harsh. It's better than fine. Then I read Fangs by Sarah Andersen, and this, delightful. It's not even, I thought this was a graphic novel. It isn't really. It's a series of cartoons featuring the same characters, but it's very like vignette-y. I mean, I read it in 15 minutes, but it's basically about a vampire called Elsie and a werewolf called Jimmy who fall in love, and there's just lots of cute little like some of the spreads are like silly little jokes, some of them are really cute, and then some of them are just like really nice images, like there she is getting dressed without a reflection obviously, and as someone who is unapologetically a big dog person, I did enjoy that one. No shade to anyone with chihuahuas, they're just they're not my breed of choice. But yeah, it was lovely. I really enjoyed it. There were, annoyingly, I was talking to my friend because my friend Lula lent me this a year ago, and I was texting them about it because I was like, oh, I'm trying to decide like which like spreads I might want a like print of or something, assuming that I might be able to buy prints of some of these, and I don't think you can, which is a real shame, but I enjoyed. Extremely cute, a lovely little pick-me-up post Dracula. And then finally, excuse me, I read and finished Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura, and I really liked this one too. It's been on the whole a pretty successful reading experience. So this is a Japanese novel about a young girl called Kokoro she's 13. She's just started junior high in Tokyo, and she's not had a very good experience, and at the time that the book starts she's been absent from school. She's not been going to school because she's had an unfortunate experience with a kind of shitty girl at school, as some of us experienced, and so she's not going to school, and her parents are kind of tiptoeing around her. They're not wanting to force her to go. They're kind of not thrilled that she isn't in school, but they're just kind of trying to navigate that. And one day Kokoro is at home and she is, you know, hiding. She's kind of almost agoraphobic. She's not going outside. Very, very incredibly socially anxious, incredibly just unsure of herself, really low self-esteem. And one day she looks across and realizes the mirror in her bedroom is like shining, and there's no way to say this without it being like magic happens now. She goes into the mirror. The mirror is a doorway, and she finds herself in a castle with 7 other young people all around her age, some a little bit older. And in that castle there is a young girl, this young girl, wearing like a wolf mask, and she introduces herself as the Wolf Queen and says that the castle is theirs. It's the castle in the mirror, the lonely castle in the mirror, hence the title of the book, and they can feel free to use the castle every day, but they have to be out of it by 5 p.m. And if they want, they could search for a key and search for a room, and if they find the key and the room, they will get a wish, but there's only one wish that can be had. And if someone finds the key, finds the room, makes a wish, the castle will disappear and no one will have any memory of the fact that they were brought there. Which is a kind of like, okay, for a concept, like, all right then, I'll go with it. And I really enjoyed it because even though that's an incredibly fantastical setup, what a lot of the book is about isn't really that quest. That's sort of going along in the background, and at various points does kind of come to the fore more in the narrative, but really you're kind of just following this group of kind of misfits, all of them by virtue of the fact that they've got their 3 mirrors in their bedrooms in the middle of the day. It becomes clear that none of them are going to school. So for various reasons, they're not able to, not comfortable to, or just for whatever reason they're not attending school. And just personally, I find that really interesting because I work in education, and absenteeism and alternative forms of education and ways of getting kids into school is like an interest area of mine. So it was quite nice to see that in a book, because there are characters in away from the castle. There's a woman who is from like an alternative school, an alternative provision, who's trying to encourage Kokoro to maybe try that school if the mainstream school isn't working for them. But really, it's a book about kind of finding your place and finding your sense of self-worth, and how for some kids that is a really hard thing to do in a normal school environment for lots of different reasons. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I did see where it was going quite early on. It didn't ruin it for me, but I don't know if I was supposed to have figured it out that early, or if that was about right. Because then I did find at the end there's quite a lot of exposition explaining what's been going on and how this castle works and what its real reason for existing is. And I kind of was like, yeah, I know, but I don't know. That could have just been me. That could have been intentional. Who even knows? But I did really enjoy it. I've been sat here thinking, like, what does it remind me of? Because it reminds me of a few things. It's sort of like if Heaven by Mieko Kawakami, without the problematic stuff in it, because I didn't love that book, but kind of like that meets like Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, but also just has a lot of like growing pains and stuff, but in a way that it didn't feel, it's not a YA book and it didn't feel like YA to me. I'm a little bit allergic to YA, so really enjoyed it. Really liked the world, and just had I just found myself like settling into reading it really easily. I've been quite distracted. I've got quite a lot of work on and stuff, and I had a really nice time just sort of losing myself in this for a little kind of chunk of time. Whereas with Dracula, I always felt a little bit like I was doing my homework, just a touch. But yeah, so there we go. That has been 4 of the books from my very first haul on this channel, and I think possibly the only real haul I ever did. So you probably won't be getting another vlog of this theme from me. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'm reasonably pleased with the choices that a year ago Hannah made for herself about her reading. Read a classic that I liked. I'm glad I read it. Really enjoyed the David Almond short stories. Really enjoyed Lonely Castle in the Mirror. Has Mizuki Tsujimura written any other books? That's a good question. So it does say she's well known for best-selling mystery novels in Japan, but I wonder if maybe not all of her work has got translated into English, which is a shame because I really enjoyed this. If you've read this and you have books that are similar, I would be really interested in getting some recommendations for that, because yeah, I enjoyed that. It was a nice little piece of escapism. Like I said, like I kind of saw where it was going, but I don't always think that is like a problem. Like sometimes I quite like guessing and being proven right. But yeah, liked it. And then yeah, the Sarah Andersen was incredibly cute, and I'm livid I can't get a print of them. So there we go. I would be very interested to hear what you've been reading recently. I would be very interested if you were to do this challenge. So for example, pick from your bookcases 3 or 4 titles that you bought about a year ago. What would the books be that you would be reading? I am very interested. Or are you very good and you buy books and then you read them and you don't have this hoarding problem that so many of us have? Congratulations if that's the case. So yeah, I will see you again soon for something. Oh, I think the next video on my channel is going to be something new and potentially exciting. If you have been missing the beautiful face of Sarah Farmer on my channel, then you may well be in luck next week. Catch you later, friends. Thanks so much. Bye.